Welcome to Intentionality with me, your host, Paul Kempff. Another episode, another milestone, another announcement. Today, I'm going to do a short solo episode with you. I haven't done one on my own for quite a while. We've had a number of interviews lately. We've done a couple of masterclasses, and we had our reading challenge over the last 3 weeks. But today, I've got a short message I want to share with you on my own. Now, in this short message, I'm going to do a quick recap or reflection on where we are with IWPK. I'm going to make a quick announcement, and then I want to share something really special with you. Now, I know your time is valuable. I know there are literally hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there that you can choose to listen to, but you've chosen to listen to this one and to this episode today. You've clicked on this episode for a reason. So I really want to encourage you today to listen till the end, because there's some really great insight in the tip of the week I want to share with you today.
You're listening to Intentionality with Paul Kempff.
Let's start with a reflection. It's been a year and 4 months since we started with IWPK. And in that year and 4 months, we have released 223 videos on YouTube. We've got just over 2,200 subscribers. As I've said, we've done 60 episodes already. This episode is episode number 60. I've interviewed more than 20 guests. I've been a guest in other podcasts with other podcasters. We have done quizzes. We have done a reading challenge. We've even joined the South African Podcasters Guild. And on their website, IWPK has been listed as a podcast to listen to under the self-help podcast section. All of these are things that we are incredibly proud of. Finally, we have moved studios 4 times in the last year and a half, and we find ourselves today in our new studio, about 95% completed. All of these things incredibly exciting, but at the same time, absolutely exhausting. It has been a massive challenge over the last year and a half to continually come up with interesting content, to get interviews done with guests that will be engaging for you, the listeners. The biggest challenge for me has simply been in ensuring that we create content for you that will keep you engaged. Now, an important thing to understand, an important context to this challenge for me, is the fact that this is something that I do part-time. It's a part-time passion. It's not my day job. I have another day job. So in between all of those responsibilities, I have to make time for this podcast. And it's for that reason that I've decided to make this announcement. In future, at least for a while, we will be releasing an episode of Intentionality with Paul Kempff once every 2 weeks instead of every week. And remember, the reason behind this is simply so that we can focus on creating even better content for you, the listeners, engaging with even more interesting guests in future, with even more interesting content. Now, given the fact that I've just said this is something that's a big challenge to me, I want to do this once every 2 weeks, I think a great question is, why am I still doing this? And that's a question that I've been asked quite a few times by quite a few people in recent times. And there's 2 reasons why I want to keep on doing IWPK, why I want to continue creating content. The first reason is I love it. This is really something I enjoy. This is something I am passionate about. And I honestly believe that it's something that is making a difference out there. It's having an impact on people's lives. Now, not every episode, not all the time, not all the people. But I am convinced that somewhere out there, there's some content in each episode that resonates with somebody. They're somewhere in their life experiencing something, and they can learn something from the content that we are sharing on this podcast. So that's the first reason why I'm doing this. And in this sense, before I get to the second reason, it's important to tell you that one of the reasons I'm also continuing with this podcast is the positive feedback I'm getting, the encouragement I'm getting, the appreciation that I'm receiving, whether it's on social media, whether it's people sending me emails, whether it's simply comments that are being left. the encouragement, the positive feedback that I'm getting is incredibly valuable. And it's at this point that I really want to encourage you to reach out. Whether it's going to our website, signing up for the newsletter, whether it's sending me an email, whether it's simply just engaging on social media, you will not understand what a difference it makes to me. Even if it's some criticism you have that you want to give us, something that we can learn from to do this podcast better. If you have ideas of new content, people that I can invite to be on this podcast as guests, please engage with us. And if you want to be a guest on this podcast, please reach out to us. Now, let's get back to the second reason why I'm continuing with this podcast, despite the challenge of creating all of this content. The second reason is a more subtle reason, and this is where I think there is a valuable lesson for everybody listening out there. The second reason has to do with the fact that in creating intentional content for this podcast, it is forcing me to stay intentional. Because the last thing in my life I want to be is a hypocrite. I don't want to tell people to do things in a certain way, and then I don't do them myself. And this is where it gets really interesting. I have found myself slipping in the last 3 months. So what does that mean? I have found myself not necessarily being as intentional as I want to be every day. I have found myself not as positive, as optimistic as I always think I should be. I have found myself struggling with challenges in my life, and here's the important part of it, being more focused on these challenges than the things I have to be grateful for. And this is where the magic of intentionality with Paul Kempff comes in. The simple act of creating intentional content, doing research for these episodes, gets me to focus on my own intentionality, gets me to realize that I have been slipping, and that I have to be more focused on being intentional in my own life as well. Kind of catching myself out, not being a hypocrite. And a part of this is also keeping to my word of the year that I shared with you in January. This whole idea of taking everything in my life that matters to another level. And this podcast is helping me do that. And that's why I'm absolutely determined to keep on creating content that can have an impact, that will make a difference in the lives of everybody listening, and as I've just explained, in my life as well. Okay, that brings me to the last part of what I want to share with you today, the tip of the week, the promised amazing content of the tip of the week. Now, we've just finished a 3-week reading challenge, and in this 3-week reading challenge over the last 3 weeks, we have explored book summaries of 21 books around the words mind, money, and life. So it was 7 books in each of these categories, which I read with the listeners, with the viewers. And these 7 books were simply short summaries of these 7 or 21 very powerful books. And what I want to share with you as a tip of the week today is one of those books that has had an incredible impact on me, and that I think is very closely linked to this idea of slipping, this idea of sometimes not being as intentional, as positive, as optimistic as you want to be. Because after all, life happens sometimes. Things get difficult. So the book I want to share with you as a tip of the week today is a book called Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Groeschel. And the best way for me to describe to you what this book has meant to me is to read a very short excerpt from this book that I found incredibly powerful. In this book, Winning the War in Your Mind, Craig Groeschel says, "The battle for control over your mind is relentless. Negative thoughts creep in like uninvited guests, whispering lies about your worth, your abilities, and your future. Some days you fight them off. Other days they settle in, making themselves at home, shaping your perception of reality. What if the struggle isn't just about willpower? What if the real fight lies in recognizing the lies you've been conditioned to believe and replacing them with truth? This isn't just about changing your thoughts. It's about reshaping the way you lead yourself and others. Whether you're guiding a team, a family, or simply striving for personal growth, the ability to master your mindset determines your effectiveness. The thoughts you dwell on shape your decisions, influence your actions, and ultimately define your leadership. Wow, some really powerful stuff. And that's it for this week. All that's left is for me to leave you with a challenge. And this is an interesting one. I want to challenge you this week that every single time you find your mind slipping, you find yourself losing this war in your mind, negative thoughts come up, pessimism, worry, anxiety, stress. Every single time those things happen, I want you to do something. Every time you find yourself in an encounter where you see an argument coming or conflict brewing, every time you find yourself in a situation where a bad habit you've wanted to get rid of this year rears its ugly head again, or a good habit that you had a resolution about this year, you get lazy again. For example, you want to get up in the morning to go to the gym or go for a run, but you feel like lying in. Every single time one of these things happen to you in the next week or two, I want you to ask yourself a question. And if possible, ask this question out loud. I know it's not always possible. But the question I want you to ask yourself is, am I being intentional now? See how many times this week you can ask yourself that question. Am I being intentional now? And you will be amazed at the difference it makes in the outcome of that situation. Your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors, the words you use in conversations with other people, in arguments with other people, the emotions you feel, the level of control you feel, by simply asking yourself that question, am I being intentional now? And that's it for this week. So all that's left is, thank you for listening, have a great week, and stay intentional.
Thanks for watching Intentionality with Paul Kempff. Subscribe, like, and click that bell to get notified when we release more episodes on how to live a life of intention and purpose.